Pastor Andrew, will you start out? Just give us a brief overview of kind of who you are and what is your role at the church, and give us kind of an overview of who you are.
Well, I'm Andrew Leaman. I'm 36 years old. I prefer a comfy couch over long walks on the beach. But but I grew up in church as a pastor's kid, and I now am a lead pastor myself. I pastor at Gracepoint in Monroe, Michigan. And that's basically who I am right now. I also am a team member at CMU. I work on the website team as well as whatever else Ryan Wakefield needs me to do. I call myself his whipping boy. But yeah, that's so lead pastor and CMU team member.
And this might be a hard question for you being a PK, but what is it that got you into ministry?
God.
Simply put.
That's the super short answer because, and I say it had to be God because, growing up as a PK, you said might be a hard question. Growing up as a PK, I really didn't want anything to do with ministry, honestly. I saw everybody sees the good side, but when you live in the home, you see all the garbage that pastors have to deal with. And I never wanted it, but then God had other plans and one thing led to another. I could talk to you for hours about my story, but basically I ended up assisting my father here first, and then he took a church down in Tennessee, and then I became lead pastor, and 3 years later, here I am.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about Gracepoint. So help us get into the mind of what is Gracepoint actually like.
Well, Gracepoint, it's a old established church. It was founded in the 50s, if I remember right. But then it had hit its heyday in the 80s, was running over 200 people, had a youth group of over 90 kids at one point. I mean, it was the goingest church in Monroe, Michigan in the 80s. But then it went into a bit of a decline after that. And then about 10 years ago, the original pastor passed away. Before he passed away, he asked my father to come assist and just kind of keep things going while he was in the hospital. He ended up passing away, and they ended up voting my father in as pastor, who were already pastoring another church north of Detroit. But when we took it over, there was a building and 4 people. I take that back. 6 people voted my father in, and only 4 showed up the next Sunday. So it's been a replant for the past 10 years, and we've had to grow it, and we've now got it up to about 70 people, give or take, and we've got a young, dynamic church full of young families and some established saints as well. And past the year before COVID, we doubled our congregation, and we were on track to do it again, and then COVID hit, and that just sort of threw everybody for a loop. But we're looking forward to doing the same thing this year, doubling our congregation again.
That's incredible. It's an interesting story, and I think a fairly common story of established churches hitting a plateau and then a decline, and now we find this revitalization opportunity before us. And as we come out of COVID, I think you're setting a goal to double again. I feel like that's an ambitious goal, but a goal that we need to tackle and to take on, and we need to hit. We need to achieve those, not just in your congregation, but in congregations all across this country. We have a huge opportunity before us. So I'm super thrilled for all of the ministry that you're doing, for the ways that you're reaching your community. And so just wanted to start off by saying thank you for all of the ways that you do ministry and connect the unchurched with your awesome church there in town. So let's back up here for a moment. When did you start using Text in Church?
Well, I signed up for Text in Church in 2018. And I'll admit I signed up mostly because CMU told me to sign up. And I didn't really use it that first year at all, honestly. And I'm just being honest. And it was just sort of one of those, as a pastor who's regrowing a church, I have a lot of pies in the air at all times. Yep. And it was just one of those ones that kind of got put off that year. But I will say once COVID happened, CMU was a huge help, but then also Text in Church became a vital tool for our church because suddenly I needed a way to reach out to everybody without having to type in a million text messages every day just to tell somebody that the live stream is up. So Text in Church became a vital tool in communicating to our congregation, as well as anybody interested in our live streams, when they were happening, when they were live, that kind of thing. Also using as a tool for outreach, as well as just getting information out there for our people.
Yeah, and this is, you've touched on this a little bit, but what are the most powerful ways that you all are using Text in Church right now?
We use it for the simple things, of course, keeping information out there to our people, which is so powerful in and of itself. But also we've used it for simple programs like we just did 21 Days of Hope. If anybody's involved in CMU, you've heard about 21 Days of Hope, where basically it was a full adventure, I'd like to call it, for our people to have hope and be hope to the community. And we got great response from that. People loved the interactivity of it, the sort of gamification of it. And Text in Church made that so easy. I mean, literally, we call it the easy button at CMU. You hit a button, it gets copied over, and you're good to go. And with just a few little edits for your church, and it's ready. And that was such a fun thing. I didn't think using a tool like this, I'd ever say it's a fun tool, but I love playing with Text in Church because there's so many ideas. Once you realize how powerful it is to reach out to your people through text messages and email automatically, but also on that relational level to where they feel like, hey, they really care about me. And we do care, but I just don't have time to text them 1,000 text messages every day. Yeah. So it gives us that opportunity to communicate with everybody while still having that relational feel and keep the conversation going when they reply, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly it, right? The Text in Church exists for relationship building, right? It's not just a communication tool similar to a bullhorn where you yell out a bunch of information, but you actually have a conversation and you do ministry through that. And I think your example of doing the 21 Days of Hope, I think spoke directly to that. So let's dive in a little bit there. Can you unpack just a little bit more of what the 21 Days of Hope was and what was the impact that you actually saw in your church?
21 Days of Hope, for those who don't know, it was a program that we partnered with, CMU partnered with Text in Church on. Basically, it was the 21 days before Easter. Some churches did it after, and you can do it however you want for your church and customize it. But in our case, the 21 days before Easter, our church members signed up for 21 Days of Hope. And then for the 21 days leading up to Easter, with the exception of Sundays, they received a daily mission or daily activity or daily thing that they were supposed to do, whether it be read a Bible study that we provided, to watch a inspirational video that we provided, to challenge them to post on their social media talking about the church, talking about what God has done in their life, then challenging them to reach out to 3 individuals that they know and share their story with them, and then eventually invite people to Easter Sunday. And we saw awesome results and had awesome feedback on it. People loved having the instruction. You know, some people just don't know what to do when it comes to outreach. So giving them a little bit of instruction, giving them a little bit of guidance, saying, hey, this is something you can do leading up to Easter that will impact not just you, because we're also pouring into them through the Bible studies and such, but then having them step out by faith and give hope to somebody else so that they can also experience what they've experienced with God. And it was a great success. It was awesome. We're working on developing other ones, and I'm excited to use other systems like this. It got people excited about outreach, got people excited about Easter, got people excited about church again, which is something really needed in the post-COVID time, you know. Yeah, because everyone was kind of tentatively coming back to church. It was this weird time, and depending on where you are in the country, some of us are still experiencing this. But as you were coming back, you had people that were maybe not as motivated or as energized as they once had been. So you leveraged these 21 days to kind of re-energize your community. But earlier you mentioned that you did this from an easy button. Can you explain what is an easy button? Because 21 days of content, of messages that are thoughtful, that are impactful,
That would take a whole lot of time to figure all this out.
It takes more time than I have, that's for sure. It takes way more time than I have as a pastor.
So the work that you guys did at CMU saved everyone else massive amounts of time. So share with them how that kind of works.
The easy button, basically, we provide it can be either a link, or I think we had it as a literal button on a web page at one point. If they have a Text in Church account, they simply go into wherever that link or button is, hit the button, it automatically opens up their Text in Church, makes a new group for them, which they then populate however they want to populate, whether manually or have people sign up for it. In my case, I had people in my church text a keyword to sign up for 21 Days of Hope. And then at that point, with the exception of a little bit of editing to make it for your specific church and your branding, at that point, it was all automatic. They started receiving text messages, reminding them of the emails that they received, giving them full instructions on what to do for that day. And it literally was as easy as hitting a button, copying it, and it automatically copied over. And you were basically there at that point. Hours of work saved with the click of a button. If we were to add up how many hours were saved by churches who use 21 Days of Hope, it'd be huge. Honestly,
massive.
It's massive. I don't even know where to start on a number like that.
And not only that, but the 21 Days of Hope, the easy button, all of the templates that were provided, there were hundreds of hours of effort that went into writing those, to scripting those, so that it could have the greatest impact possible.
Right.
And you and the CMU team had a huge role in that. So we were super grateful for all of the work that you guys did, but then you were so generous in giving it away to thousands of churches across the country participated in this. Thousands or maybe tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of emails and text messages were sent, re-engaging congregations all across the country. So I want to say how proud I am of getting to be a part of something that had such a massive impact across the country in communities large and small. You guys did something that was really, really cool, and we were thankful to be on that journey with you.
Well, I also want to commend Text in Church for making a tool that made a program like that so easy. It really was. It was just a matter of us writing the content, and then it was just automated. It made it so easy for so many churches. And the reason I'm involved in CMU and the reason I love Text in Church is both of these companies are all about, they're not so much about profit, they're about profit for the kingdom is really where the goal is. Of course, we have to fund it, so we have to charge something, but our end goal isn't our own pocketbook, it's the kingdom of God, and that's what I appreciate about both those companies.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Andrew. Yeah. Let's dig in just a minute and kind of in your Text in Church journey. What is the problem that you were having or that you are having that Text in Church helps to solve?
Number one would be communication, for sure. When you reach a certain church size, especially when we were first rebuilding the church and I had 10 saints, it was easy for me to reach out to everybody and communicate what needed to be communicated, whatever it was. But as you grow, suddenly anything past 50, I would say, it starts to get really difficult to communicate with everyone in a way that they're getting it. You can post on social media, you can send an email, you can't even text them, but in a lot of the tools that are out there, it's simply, like you said before, kind of that megaphone blast, and there's not a whole lot of relational communication involved. But with Text in Church, you get that relational aspect because it looks like it's coming from either the church or coming directly from Pastor Leaman, and technically that's not how it's working, but if they respond, then I am actually going to take the time and respond to them myself and answer any questions they have, pray for them if they need prayer, whatever it is. And that's what creates such a dynamic tool with with Text in Church, TIC, is that relational aspect is so powerful. So powerful. I think everybody knows in the back of their mind that the initial message might be a mass text, but figuring out that they can respond to it and actually have Pastor Leaman respond back, that's huge. It's huge. Yeah. And it shows that we really do care.
And Pastor Leaman, what did the frustration feel like as you were trying to solve this communication problem?
Frustration. How did the frustration feel? It felt frustrating. It was tough because, especially like I said, once we grew to a certain point, the thought of having to sit down and write 50 text messages, or even if I'm just copy pasting the same text message to 50 people, that's just exhausting, and it reaches a point that you just don't have the time for it. And when you don't have the time for it, and it's just going to take a huge amount of time and feel fairly useless, is really what it is. It feels useless sometimes if you have to do it manually. But having the ability to do it auto-magically and keep that relational aspect is great. And that frustration was very quickly relieved with a tool like Text in Church. Yep.
And so can you take me to the moment where you realized that Text in Church was actually working to solve this problem for you?
Middle of COVID. We were doing nothing but live streams. We started using the tool, and I love the tool. I love the concept of it at the time, but that sort of aha moment when I really fell in love with Text in Church was when nobody was showing up for the live stream. We sent out a quick message through Text in Church, and then suddenly everybody's showing up for church. And it was like, wow, that was so easy. And here I was just being frustrated that nobody's online yet. But as soon as I put that message out, it was like, boom, this tool's amazing, because I was able to do that effortlessly just through a quick text message to a single group, and everybody showed up for church all of a sudden, which makes a pastor feel good. Makes a pastor feel good.
Absolutely. And Text in Church was accidentally, but we were perfectly equipped for COVID. Right. Mm-hmm. That was never our intention. We had no foresight. We had no idea that was coming. But it became so critically important for churches to have this lifeline into people's homes, into people's pockets, so that we could get a link out to a live stream, but we could check in and do ministry with our community that we couldn't see in person. And so, it was an enormous growth period for Text in Church, because there were so many churches coming on board, recognizing, we're in trouble because we don't have a way to connect with these people outside of our church buildings. And so tons of new churches jumped on board and started opening up that communication channel. And it was a huge success in that we were able to bring a ton of people that otherwise couldn't find the link. Like, Facebook makes it so hard to find a Facebook Live link. It's unbelievable how that can get lost in your stream, but it does. And so having a direct link on there has been super, super helpful. So I can completely relate to that with hundreds of churches across the country having that same experience.
Well, so tell me, what does it look like? I was just going to say, you really were positioned perfectly for a situation like COVID. I mean, God forbid it happens again, but if it does, Text in Church is going to be more vital for more churches, even again, because it's so powerful for communication in times when communication is extra hard, like through something like a pandemic.
Yeah, and the same is true of the church. I think the church has come a long, long way during the pandemic, and we are more prepared for this again. Most churches were not ready for the pandemic, and they had to work really hard and make massive pivots for it to all work out. And props to them, they did it. The local church as a whole stepped up and did amazing things throughout COVID. And I think ultimately that has prepared us for a brighter future. I think we're going to reach more people because of those changes that we made, being both living in this hybrid world where we now do ministry online and in person. And I don't think that's going to go away as the pandemic lifts. The online aspect is here to stay. It was here, we just didn't know it prior to. And so I think big
more
opportunities
churches
there.
realized how important the online service really was. And how vital it is to catch up with the technology. A lot of churches were kind of holding back before COVID, but now they realize, okay, this is something we need to maintain. At least I hope they realize they need to maintain it moving forward.
And Pastor Leaman, what would you say, what's the biggest change in your ministry since you've started using Text in Church?
Biggest change would be our communication has been so simplified through it. It's and that is the biggest thing. I think I reiterated over and over when talking about Text in Church. It's so simple to use. I could teach one of my youth kids to do it. I could teach anybody to do it. I'm not going to give just anybody access to it, but it's so simple. It's so intuitive that it makes getting any information out so easy. And then with the ability to have multiple phone numbers, even have multiple ministries set up with multiple groups. And so like my youth can have a number that when it comes to parents, they see, oh, this is from the youth pastor, or this is from the kids pastor. And it's lets you divide it up, but all in one system that's super easy to use. And just, it's simplified communication tremendously.
Awesome. That's wonderful to hear. That's why we set out to build Texan Church, and that's not even honest. That's not an honest statement. Honestly, we didn't set out to build Texan Church. We set out to solve one problem. We were struggling at the church plant that I was a part of with guest follow-up, and so we set out to build a tool to fix guest follow-up for my specific church. And then it snowballed out of there, and then all of a sudden we were doing ministry and helping do first-time guest follow-up for about 50 churches. This is before Texan Church was even an idea. And then it snowballed out of that into where it just became overwhelming, and I was hoping to shut that down. It was just this personal ministry I was doing. So I sent out a message, let everyone know, hey, this is my last month that I'm going to be doing this for you guys. And then I got all these messages back saying, no, you can't stop. This is the most effective guest follow-up we've ever done. We'll pay you for it. And then that was this weird moment for me, honestly, because I didn't want to collect ministry dollars for doing this, but it was my father helped me to understand, like, Tyler, it's cool. It's nice. It's neat that you're helping 50 churches do guest follow-up, but what about the impact would be if you could do this for 5,000 churches or 50,000 churches? That's a much bigger goal. That's where we're headed. Right. And so that was when we did this whole complete shift, and we said, okay, this isn't just this weird little thing that personal ministry that Tyler does on Sunday nights, but now instead we're going to build an entire team. We're going to build an entire software so that we can make this simple for church leaders all across the country to be able to do. And so it started this really awesome journey that I'm so grateful for. But it was never our idea. It was church leaders like yourself that jump on calls with us and say, hey, we love Texan Church, but... And then, anytime I hear that, I perk up because you're about to tell me something that we can do better. And so I want to hear that from you. And you've actually been on many calls with me where you've done that. You've shared ways that we can improve. And then we take that to our development team and we just try to build out those features that church leaders are asking for. And so I want to say thank you for your generosity in that. In all of the ways that you and so many church leaders out there have breathed life into Texan Church and helped us to know where are the new things that we need to be building. And so that has been a huge part of our journey, is listening to incredible church leaders tell us what tools they need, and then we simply build those so that they can be more effective at connecting with their community. So Pastor Leaman, thank you for that. And as we wrap up here, I just want to ask one final question. For the church leaders that are out there that are maybe considering using Texan Church but have never tried it out themselves, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that communicating with your saints does not have to be a headache. It does not have to be hard. It does not have to be a chore. If you're struggling with getting all your information out to all your people, Texan Church is a solution for that. Instead of trying to juggle a million different communication channels, you could tell me the stats better than I know, Tyler, but the open rate on text messages is so much higher than anything else. Social media, you're hoping that they see it. Email, you're hoping they open it up. But text messages, what is it? What is the number, Tyler? It's
98, 99% of text messages are opened.
And it's such a game changer, because then at least 90%, if we're even using a super conservative number, 90% of your people are seeing the information you're putting out. And that's a dramatic increase over any other communication channel that you have available to you. So try it. Perfect. Give it a shot. I think you almost always have the 60-day free trial going, don't you, Tyler? So
we always are offering free trials, and that's something I want you to take away. If you're a church leader who's thinking about this, you don't even have to make a rational decision about it. You can just simply go and try it. Right? There's no risk involved. Go try it. If it works for your or for your church and your ministry, then stick around. And if it doesn't, you can cancel at any time. We want to serve you and your church if it makes sense. If it doesn't, that's completely fine. But what we have learned and what we know and believe is that if you effectively leverage a communication tool like Text in Church, it is only going to help your church to, one, reach more people, but also to engage or re-engage with your members in ways that you don't have access to without a communication tool like Text in Church. And so, yeah, you're completely right. 94% of text messages are opened up within 3 minutes. Yeah. So 20% or so of emails get opened up ever, but a text message, 94% in the first 3 minutes. So that's what we know to be, revolutionary in this time frame, is that people have their cell phones with them 24 hours a day, and we are checking our text messages like crazy. We're all addicted to our phones. It's refreshing when one of those text messages is from your church or from your pastor. And that's an awesome opportunity for a congregant to also engage with a pastor, with a church leader. We want those conversations. We want to build those relationships. And if we just open up the channels to do so, it creates a huge opportunity for ministry. And so with that, Andrew, I want to say thank you so much for all of the ways that you are growing the kingdom, that you are helping local churches to be just a little bit more effective. And for sharing the ways that Text in Church has played a small role in that with your church and on your journey. So thank you so much for all that you do.
Absolutely. And thank you guys at Text in Church for everything you do, being so open to improving. You guys are constantly putting new stuff out there, and that's huge for churches. The fact that you listen to them is amazing. There's not a lot of companies that do that anymore. And I just want to thank you guys for creating an awesome tool that has helped my church and is, I know, helping thousands of other churches reach their communities on levels that they never could have before. It's really fantastic.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much, and I hope you have an awesome rest of the day.
I appreciate it. You too.